fantastic. That's the Mahavishnu Orchestra. You know, I don't know if this is Billy Cobham or Narada Michael Walden. I'm not sure. I gotta start this freaking machine. I don't know. I'm not sure if this is Billy Cobham or Narada Michael Walden. Narada took Billy's chair later. 2 albums later. Let me kill this. Really nice. Oh, listen to that guitar player, John McLaughlin. That's a dream. I want to play with John McLaughlin. Hey John, I'm available. Him and Herbie Hancock and Keith Richards. Oh, I'm available, Keith. Definitely. I love the way Keith plays. Herbie Hancock, I'm waiting. I know I would be able to fit into that band perfectly because that's the way I play. I want to talk about that. What I want to talk about is the evolution of my life in drumming, and what I think is a good thing to get hold of as you get a little bit older. Now, I'm not going to tell you guys how old I am. You can guess. It really doesn't matter. But I've been here a little while. People who ask me my age, and I usually just say, I've been here a little while. I've seen a few sunsets. You know what's funny, right? This is really cool. When you run into somebody, right, who you haven't seen in 10 years or 20 years. I ran into a guy, right, that I hadn't seen for 40 years, It was amazing. And, you run into him, and you see him. You know how, people say, man, you look great, What I usually do, picture myself doing is, man, you look like hell. What the hell happened to you? No, I don't say that, but it's a joke, No, you never say that to anybody. But it's like sort of a comical type thing. So anyway, I want to talk about that. The evolution of one's drumming. Now, I did a solo in a song called The Prophet with Trouble. Jeff Gilman, Joe Florio, John Sindorf. Richard Klingel was the guitar player in the band. Bruce Steins, he was the first guitar player, but he left. For a short time, we had a guy named Jeff Ecker, but he didn't stay very well. He was an amazing guitar player. Jeff could play like John McLaughlin. No contest. This guy could play everything that John McLaughlin could play. Maybe even, but in his own style. So I did a solo in The Prophet. It's lost, but Jeff Gilman said he found a cassette, and he has it, and eventually when I get it, I will post that. It's just a sound recording. It was one of the most amazingly constructed solos that I ever did because I constructed it. It was really an amazing piece of work. It was part of a composition. And but let me talk a little bit about that. If I had to, now this is a long time ago. I'm not going to tell you how many years ago, but it was enough years ago, right? That my body changed, my mind changed, everything changed. But if I was on that drum set, by the way, the drum set that I performed it on was about the same size as the drum set that you guys can see on my earlier films, the Blue Vista Light drum set. It was a rather large set, a lot of tom-toms. That was the first roll that I did. It was in 6, so I started right from my high 6, and I went all the way down to my tom-tom. I had a lot of toms. I think I was about, I don't know, maybe it was 14 drums altogether, not including the bass drum. Not a lot of cymbals though. I always had a ride, a crash, a garbage can crash, a crash in front of me. Never had a lot, and then I got a couple of splashes to the left, but never had a lot of cymbals. Like some guys who like to have a lot of cymbals. I was never a large cymbal player. But in any event, if I was to be asked to reproduce that solo that I did when I was really, really young, was probably about 22 at the time. 23. I wouldn't be able to do it. No way. No contest. There's no way that I could do it. Because technically, I just don't think right that my hands are right would be able to hold up during any endurance right for that particular piece that I did. So it remains like my work in history. Can't really do it anymore. What I think happens, and my friend Dr. Mike told me about this, was I asked him, I said, well, what do you think of my drumming? I mean, I'm not doing really what I did back then, because we were looking at some of the films when Dr. Mike was helping me figure out what things on YouTube I wanted to promote and what things I wanted to take down. And there were some performances of me with Visions. By the way, you guys can find bits and pieces of my work with Visions up online. I did the Soul Sacrifice solo somewhere. That's right. That was about 7 years, maybe 6 years after my work with Trouble. But that, I was pretty fast back then. Really, really, a lot of drums. It was like, and I don't think I could do that anymore. Well, what Mike said to me was this: you haven't really decreased your technical skills. You just evolved into like a different level of playing, and that has to happen when you are here for more years, So while you're young, play it like you're from New York, Give it everything you got, because when you get older, you might not have the technical stamina and power that you had back then. Now, there are exceptions to that, so I don't want to discourage anybody not to try, but I know what I can do and what I can't do. I became kind of like a melodic groove drummer. If you guys listening to my work, you're not going to be fascinated by my single stroke rolls anymore. Listen to Peter Greco. Listen to Frank Bellucci. Those guys still have the most amazing single strokes that they had maybe when they were younger. I don't know how Frank played when he was my age, but he still has that. I don't have that anymore. I never had that, actually, so that's cool. But, so there are exceptions. I mean, guys are Now, another exception is Buddy Rich. When Buddy played his last couple of concerts, and they're on YouTube, you can find them. They're dated somewhere in 87, because I think that's when Buddy left us. Somewhere in 1987 was actually when he passed away. Don't quote me, but I'm pretty positive about that. Sad day for everybody. Buddy died really young. I mean, Buddy was only, I think, 69. I don't think he lived to be past 70. Man, that's a drag. He had something with the brain, It was really a drag. But what I did want to say was positive is his last performances before, at one point, I guess he became ill. They talked a little bit about that. There wasn't much, news footage on that. There was big news footage when he passed away, though, but there wasn't much footage on when he got sick. That's not a good thing, for the, for the press to cover anyway. You don't want to, when somebody gets sick like that, nobody wants to see that. But in any event, I think that Buddy's solos, even at that later age, were just as amazing as his earlier ones. But I will say this. The length of his solo, I think, I'm not positive about this, but the length of his solos, when he was in his later 60s, was shorter than the length of his solos back at what was that? It's on YouTube. It's a recording. I forget what it was now. Well, he was wearing that red turtleneck, and it was a live concert. I forget what it was called. It was amazing. It was a really, really long solo. But his solos got maybe a little shorter in that sense. So, that happens, I'll give you another example. It's an amazing evolution, but Billy Cobham, if you watch films of him when he did the Mahavishnu Orchestra, and then you watch films of him today, his most recent band, which, by the way, the guy is still the god of drumming. He's amazing. But he's not the right doing the kind of stuff that he did back then. It's different. It's like evolution. It's like more, I think, like Cobham's grooving one now because he's playing a little less. Man, I wish I could do what he did back then. I couldn't do what he did back then, and I still can't do it now, and I'll probably never do it. Not even in heaven, you know? But anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about. That's what I wanted to say. So that, you know, you evolve, all right, in your drumming, and, you know, celebrate that, all right, because there's different things, you know. I've evolved in my writing, like my keyboard writing. It's gotten to write much more classically fugue sort of oriented with a lot of different things going on. I haven't produced any new things yet, but keep an ear out for them. But if you listen to my compositions, you'll see that it evolved. Well, I don't have that many compositions. But, so everything is an evolution. And I guess lastly what I just want to say is respect that evolution, you know. So, you know, I'm never going to be able to do that Prophet solo again. It's in history. It's like a moment of what I accomplished. It's kind of like, and I once said this to Danny, right? It was on YouTube, but it wasn't my words. I got it from Sylvester Stallone in Rocky, where he said to Apollo Creed in the movie when they were fighting, he goes, you know, that's not us anymore. We can't do that like we did that back then. We become civilized, you know, and that's what I think happened to me, though I'm really not civilized, maybe a little bit. But I've evolved, right, into like a whole different spectrum of playing. And I think my drumming is better now than it ever was in my whole life because I've evolved. I know, right, where I want to put what and how to do it. And, you know, I still fall off my chair, right, you know, some percent of the time. And when I do it, all right, I usually congratulate myself and tell you guys, all right, that was good. I butchered that one, you know, but that's all right. You know, I'm not like the perfect clean drummer, you know. There's some guys right that are perfect clean drummers, you know. So, you know, enjoy it, you know, while you're young. Take care of yourself so when you get old you can still play. I'll leave you with this last story, right, about evolution. I got a chance, right, to see Sam Milano just before he passed away. And somebody I had a picture of my phone, and that phone got thrown in the dumpster. I was like, I had my arm around Mr. Milano, and I was kind of like that. He was probably about, I don't know how old he was. It was just before he passed away. If you guys know how old he was, let me know. I don't know if he lived into his 90s. He might have been into his 90s, maybe his 80s. I really don't know. But he performed at Sam Ash. Peter Greco held a tribute to him. It was the most wonderful night of my life, right? You know, seeing him again and coming over to him. I don't know if he remembered me, but you know, he performed, and you know, even though like he used to be like really, his single strokes were like unbelievable. I know about some of the things that he was capable of doing, and I taught some of his students, so he had like really amazing technique. But in the end, you know, when he was that age, right, he wasn't really doing that anymore. But the thing that was really cool, it evolved, right, and his swing, oh man, his swing was so evolved, you could like just eat off of that swing, you know. And he had a couple of buzz rolls that were really sweet, you know. So even though, right, he might not have been, you know, at that time, right, unfortunately, right, he had a cane. You want to hear something funny, right? I had heard somewhere, right, that he had busted his hip, and he didn't know it. He was like walking around, right, with a busted hip, still playing, still doing what he was doing, and he didn't even know it. Now that's what I'm talking about, you know. You know, that he still did that, and I'll never forget that. Yeah, and I have that on a phone somewhere that I'll never see. I took a little footage of him playing, and I remember, right, like how happy he was. It was just that happiness, and he kind of made these expressions, and he was saying these sayings. You know, he was kind of making sounds of passion, and that was cool. So, you know, you can play it right, and I hope, right, you know, if whoever it is, right, that put me here wants to keep me here long enough that I could still keep playing, you know, as I go on in my life. And, you know, the best way, right, you know, to prevent me not being able to play is to come to this freaking goddamn place, which I can't stand, but I come here. I'd recommend that you guys do the same, all right? Before, right, all right, you're walking around with a walker, all right, and you're in your 50s. Or before, right, you goddamn have 4 stents in your heart, you know? Which is not a good thing to have, you know? So stay cool and be here and make it happen. What it is. I'll see you guys later.